This is our next image from the panorama, and we're going to take a look at this area here, which is pretty interesting. I'd like to point out up in the sky, you can clearly see there's a pattern, and that's the pattern that they've overlaid over the whole image. Now, it's not just an overlay, it's what's known as a displacement map. And what it does is it displaces the image below it, making it look like as if you're looking through a bathroom window, a little glass window. So why would they do that? They don't want us to see what's there. So I'll give you a pan through. This is the original image with the M.E.T.A.D.E.X process applied. So this is a brighter image, and I'll give you a pan through of this. We are going to be taking a closer look at each individual area of interest. Let's darken it and blur it slightly to filter out some of the garbage. And as you can see, we can start to see the structural elements starting to pop out. So I'll give you a pan through this. Now these are all structures up here on the hill. This one's very cool. And this is part of a structure, and that's part of a structure, and this is part of a structure, and so is this. And we'll be taking a close look at this as well, and this. And especially this back area here, because this is a structure up here. Let's push this to the utter limits. I've darkened it quite a bit more, and I've boosted the contrast. And this will let you see the structural elements. It's really popping now. So you can see there's a structure here, structure there. There's a kind of dome structure there and here, and at the front, and here, and up on the hill, and this part. Every bit of this is structures. And you can see in the sand, obviously they've mapped sand to this, but you can actually start to see what's below it. And up here. So the next part we're going to be looking at is up here. And I shall just zoom in a wee bit and show you. This here. And it looks like a piece of wreckage or something. So this is the M.E.T.A.D.E.X version. And you can see some shards here. It looks like shards of metal. And we've got 3 scallops there, and a kind of semicircle there, and there's some non-fractal geometry kicking about. What I'll do is I'll lighten it up a bit so you can see it a wee bit better. And let's darken it so we can see all this mechanical looking stuff round about it. And that's not rocks, so I don't know what it is. Now we've got other sort of shards of metal there. And if you look here, you can see this is sort of cylindrical, and I don't know what this is, but certainly not a rock. And just to be thorough, I'll brighten the whole shebang up, and you can see clearly I've got piping there, all along here and here. Now this is not rocks. It could be structural, it could be, old mechanical bits and pieces, but whatever it is, it's not rocks. So the next bit we're going to take a wee look at is this area here. If we look at this here, I'll give you a pan through. We can see things. It looks as if it's buried, but I believe all this sand NASA has put in. I mean, if you look at these lines, the way they flow, that's not natural. What I'll do is I'll show you a darker version. And what I've done is I've managed to bring out some of the shadows, and obviously they have mapped sand to what was there. All that's left is the shadows, which I managed to bring out. I'll give you a pan through of this one, and you can see a lot more. And you can see it's some sort of wreckage or structural. Look at this piece here. I'll give you a pan through. I mean, look at this. That's sort of mechanical or structural. It could be a structural beam. I'll get this part here. Look at this part here. And you can clearly see what's below the sand that they've put in, obviously to hide what is actually there. Now, just to be thorough, what I'll do is I'll show you a brighter version, and what I've done is I've blurred it, and I'll give you a pan through of this. Got some tubing there, it could be pipes, and we can see what could be rivets or bolts. They've obviously been tampering with these images to obfuscate the content that's in here, so we don't see what's there. But we're not stupid, and you can clearly see there's a rivet or a bolt there, and this is some sort of mechanical or structural piece. And you can just see the way the lines are flowing there. The next area we're going to be looking at is this area at the back here. And this is a structure up in the hill. This is very cool. So this here is a structure. This is a structure up here. And this is a structure. And we've got part of a structure here. Okay, so I brightened it up, and I'll give you a pan through of this. And we can see structural elements up in the hill. And we've got a structure here. We can see the round piece here. And that could be an entrance. And we can clearly see this is a structure up on the hill. And this, which is very, very cool. Look at this. There is so much non-fractal geometry there. Nobody could say that's a rock. Okay, so what I've done here is, I'll give you a pan through. I've brought out some more detail. We can see a square entrance here. It's clear as day. We've got some structural components there. And we can see that could be an entrance, probably is. You can see more details of the structure on the hill. I've managed to bring out even more detail of this structure and this part here. I've managed to bring some more of the detail out there, so you can actually see more detail of that. And you can clearly see that's an entrance. And we've got something that comes across here. And if you look at the back, we can clearly see these are structures. And this here, and that. I mean, we can see this part comes out and then curves in. Now this stuff at the bottom is part of the structure, and I've brought it out as best I can. Pretty incredible architecture, guys, eh? These nitwits at NASA. Okay, so what I've done is I've darkened it, and this is as much detail as I can pull out of this. I'll give you a wee pan through so you can see the finished article. And there's no doubt, even though it's blurry, you can clearly see these are structures. This could be one structure, or it could be multiple structures. We don't know because the resolution is pretty low with these Navcams. What we're going to do now is take a wee look at some of this, which they make it look as if it's rock, this bit here. Let's take a wee look at this. And you can see we've got something sticking out of the front here. And some non-fractal geometry. If you look at this bit at the back, we've got 2 quarter circles. And it looks as if they're a hole right through. Let's brighten it up a wee bit, see what we can see. We can see barely some detail in there. And we've got something, could be mechanical. And we can see this part of the back a bit better. And obviously this here. Now we've got a lot of non-fractal geometry all over this area. And what I'll do now is I'll darken it. I'll put a wee bit of blur in it, and I'll give you a pan through the whole area, and you can see that this is not rock. Especially this bit here. There's too much non-fractal geometry. This part up here. Okay, what will we look at now? I think we'll look at this part at the back here. There's a structure. I've cropped the area out, and this has had the M.E.T.A.D.E.X processing applied to it. And it's a wee bit dark. What I'll do is I'll brighten it up a wee touch, and I'll give you a pan through. And check out all this non-fractal geometry all over the place. And we can see this as a structure, and that's a roof. So let's darken it and see what we can see. I've added a wee bit of blur. Now I'd like to point out this slope This is like virtually perfectly flat. Obviously it's got the wee panels and whatever, but that is almost like a roof. And we can see at the back here, this is a structure, and this here is as well. What I'll do is I'll give you a pan through. Just before I give you the pan through, I'd like to point at this garbage out in the sky. I have left this to let you see what they've added. So I'll give you a pan through. Look at this here. And just to be thorough, I'll bring it up and I'll give you a pan through. Now we can see this part here a bit clearer. That looks like tweezers. I'm not saying it is, it just looks that way. And this here, we can see we've got a perfect right angle there. We can see this is structural. The same up the top. And this bit here. And here. And I'll point out this. And let's take a closer look at this. We can see this is structural, and we've got the roof at the back here. And this could be a small domed structure, could be part of it, or it could be separate. And again, we've got this at the front. And if you look at this bit here, it looks like a toilet seat. And we've got some non-fractal geometry there. Okay, what we're going to do is have a look at this bottom area here. This is very interesting. NASA says all this white stuff is a clay layer, but it's not. I'm not a geologist, but I think I can safely say that it's not clay. Okay, so this is the M.E.T.A.D.E.X version, and I'll zoom in a wee bit and give you a pan through. If you look at this, we can see some sort of maybe carvings, hieroglyphs. If we look at all this, and this bit up here, we're going to take a closer look at that there. Now we can see some carvings or maybe hieroglyphs all over this. So this is not a rock or a clay layer, it's not bedrock. Bedrock doesn't have stuff like that on it. And again, we've got non-fractal geometry all over, up here, and especially this bit and this. What I'll now do is I'll brighten it up a bit and give you a pan through of the brighter image. And we can clearly see here, this is not natural. It could be a bolt there. Yeah, NASA, you've got us all fooled. Idiots. And here's a darker version. I've added a wee bit of blur just to try and get rid of some of the garbage. Let's take a closer look. We've got some, almost looks like hieroglyphs or writing or something. Their writing could be three-dimensional. Just because we write on one plane or carve on one plane doesn't mean to say the Martians do the same. And what I'll do is I'll show you this one, which I've added a bit of blur. I've enhanced it further and really pumped up the contrast so that we can really see what's going on here. I mean, look at that, that's right angles. We can see carvings or something. This here, a line, and it's intersected but with, it's a right angle. And we'll get this bit here, and this, and a bit of the front, and this. We're going to be taking a close look at this next. When you just look at it all, you can clearly see it's not natural. This has had the M.E.T.A.D.E.X process applied to it. And here is a brighter version. And this is a darker version. And I've really pumped up the contrast. And if you look at this bit at the back, it's quite interesting as well. And this here, that looks like a wee alien with tentacles. Now we're going to have a wee look at this bit at the back here. This is the area here which has had the M.E.T.A.D.E.X process applied to it. I'll just give you a pan through. We can see even without a lot of processing, we've got structural elements. We can see that. Well, let's see how it looks a bit brighter. Again, I'm going to give you a pan through. I mean, they've added so much garbage into this, it is pretty hard to isolate. But you can clearly see there's a lot of non-fractal geometry, which would suggest structures. Okay, let's take this another wee bit further. And we'll darken it. And we can see we'll get a big round thing here. And this is starting to pop out. And the bits at the back. What I'll do is I'll give you another pan through. I mean, look at the amount of garbage they've added to this. We've got a triangular thing there. I mean, you can see these are structural. All these bits here. And we'll just, for good measure, blur it a wee bit. A lot of the garbage is taken away so it's not as distracting, but it is quite blurred, but we can see all the structural elements. We've got a circular thing here. That looks like a wee flying saucer that's flew into the side of the building. So I've got another few bits and pieces I'll just go through and show you. I'll give you a pan through this. This is a light version. And this up here. That's not natural. Let's look at the darkened version, and this has brought out a lot of things that you couldn't see in the lighter version. There's a lot of carving, a lot of non-fractal geometry. The way that curves, it's kind of domed. So as you can see, this is not bedrock or a clay layer. And that's our line to us. Look at this up here. Could be mechanical, it could be carved, could be structural. We don't know. But we do know that there's a lot of non-fractal geometry, and this is not natural. And look at this part up here. Yeah, NASA's got us all fooled. And here's our next offering. I'll just zoom in and do a pan through to let you see. I'll just draw your attention to this up here. Now on the darker version, it is a lot easier to see. Could be carving or hieroglyphs. Could be mechanical. But there's too much non-fractal geometry. Look at this line here. And that is at a 90-degree angle to that. Look, this could be hieroglyphs or carvings. This here. And this bit at the front. And this here. So there's a lot of things that, well, you can clearly see this is not natural. And here's our next offering. I'll draw your attention to this bit here. And these bits. Give you a pan through of it. You'll see all this a lot better in the darker version. That's definitely some kind of writing or hieroglyphs, in my opinion. Right. I've added a wee bit of blur to make it a wee bit easier to see without all the distracting pattern that they've added to it. So you can see that it's some kind of carving in this bit. You can see that those hieroglyphs or carvings a lot easier here too. I mean, if I had to put a bet on, I would say that's some kind of hieroglyphs or carving. All this here. Down here as well. It's all over the place. I'll give you a pan through of this. Draw your attention to this. And this. And all these wee bits sticking out. The bits at the front. There's a lot in this. I'll show you the darker version and you will see it a lot clearer. So I don't know what all this is, but it's not rock. These bits up here. There's quite a bit all over. If you look at these bits here, and for our next offering, we're going to be looking at this area here. I'll just zoom in a bit for you. Looks like a piece of some structural sticking out. This has had the M.E.T.A.D.E.X process applied to it. I'll give you a pan through. And you can see we've got some structural elements. We've got something that's circular. Got some non-fractal geometry there. And here as well. And here. What we'll do is we'll darken it. And we see we've got some stuff popping out here. We can see this a bit better. And this. And all this. I'll punch up the contrast a wee bit. And just to be thorough, we'll brighten it up a wee touch. And I'll give you a pan through. We can see we've got some piping or structural stuff there. We've got this, whatever it is, and this here. Bit at the back, that looks like a bit of metal sticking out. So this is our next offering, and I'll give you a pan through. And we'll look at the darker version now. And you can see a lot more here. Look at this. All this. This is our next offering, and this is the darker version. And we can see we've got some kind of carvings and hieroglyphs all over the place, especially this part here. We'll take a closer look at this. This part here as well. So the next image we're going to be looking at from the same sol is this one. And we're going to take a wee look at this area here. And this is a structure. And we've got an entrance here. This is it brightened up a bit. And this is with the contrast boosted. Okay, so I shall zoom in and give you a pan through. So we have some sort of what looks like a wall there, and we have what could be a structure there. And if you look here, we've got some non-fractal geometry, could be some more structures there. Now this here, I think, is an entrance. And if you look, you can actually see the square door. And it looks as if they've stuck some sand in there. Then again, that could be the door, or what's left of it. And if we look above, we can see all sorts. See, if we follow it, these parts all the way up, you can clearly see that that looks like a doorway. And then we've got this. This could be the top of a structure. And we can see how these parts are parallel. That's another indication that it's a structure. And we have a straight line here, which would suggest that could be a roof. And if we look at this here, we can see more structural elements all over here. We've got non-fractal geometry. And we've got a wee cylinder thingy there. Look at this. And there. Okay, we'll take a closer look at the top. This is the original M.E.T.A.D.E.X. This is it lightened up a bit. And here's a high contrast version. Now I brought out a wee bit more details. You can see a few more details of the ridge line there and some structural parts there and up the top as well. There's a lot of artefacts and all this shite up in the sky that NASA has put in. But you can see that's not a rock. Now let's take a look at the bottom end. That's the original M.E.T.A.D.E.X. That's a brighter version. And this is a high contrast version. And this is a darker version. So what I'll do is I'll give you a pan through of the bright version first. And we can see what we see. Now if you draw your attention to all these lines that are all parallel, which would indicate a structure hidden below NASA's garbage. And we have this sort of what remains of some kind of pyramidal thing, and it seems to be hollow. And we've got this thing next to it, and we've got this thing sticking out the ground. We've got all these bits, all straight bits that look parallel, and this, all this here. Look at this thing. Okay, let's take a look at the higher contrast. I've really pushed the contrast and I've blurred that a wee bit to try and let you see what's below the sand. And you can see this a bit better. And this. So you can see there's structural stuff all over the place. And all this here. So you start to see what's below all this. And I believe NASA has mapped this so-called sand to what was there. And we're starting to see the shadow of what's there. It could be stairs there. Looks as if it's a curved stairway. And look at all this down the bottom. Okay, I'll give you a pan through of the dark one. Now, this is mainly to show you what is below the sand, or so-called sand. And I'll let you see that this is structural. And it's the only way to show this. We can't see it any other way. You've just got to make it really dark, blur it a bit, and really push the contrast. When you look at this down the bottom, this is definitely structural. And that looks like some kind of structural beam. And see, if you look closely at this here, you can actually see where they've cut out triangular pieces to cut down the weight of the structural beam. And that's what we would do as well. So we're not so different from the Martians. Look at this here. And you can see this a lot clearer here. And that. So you can see all these things are part of something that's hidden, or NASA has tried to obfuscate. And look at all this. And you can see it's structural. Now that is damn cool, although I say it myself.